Oh my goodness. Guys, sorry for the delay. Gotta get back into real life here. Realize I'm not on tour anymore. Just let me know you can hear the audio okay. First of all, just because I'm trying a little different thing today. It should sound better. Uh that also took me just a second here and I really wanted to do it. So I decided to I was running late. I could have done it the old way, but audio is perfect. Good. Audio okay. Okay, good. Yeah, you can see I've got this microphone here, so which you've probably seen something very similar in the past, but this is actually a different one. Um, in the past, I've used an SM7 running through a mic preamp and a cloud lifter and some different stuff a cloud lifter is like an internal or sorry, like an inline mic preamp. If you guys never seen one, it's like looks like this. It just adds clean gain to a microphone because some mics like SM7s are actually really low gain. And then you got to gain them up and they can make noise. And so this is like a good low noise inline mic pre. But anyway, I got when I was at Shure recently an SM7 that has an internal preamp built in. So they've kind of addressed that because they knew it was an issue on the classic SM7 design. And so this one has a gain bump, and it's also got a little mid-range boost on it on a switch that kind of is right in your, tailored for like your voice sort of frequencies. And so I've got that on right now. And I tried it last week, actually. I think after I did this last week, after I did my live stream last week, I tested the mic for the first time, and I thought I'll just try it because I've been just using the internal like on my monitor, the Apple mic, for a long time now because I got tired of messing around with all this stuff. But this is a little easier just because of it's less gear with I don't need the cloud lifter. Nothing wrong with the cloud lifter, but it's just extra stuff to plug in and all that. So this just makes it really simple with just a microphone straight into an interface, and it's pretty cool. So anyway, that's what I'm doing right now. It should sound good and clear, and I got a little bit of compression on it, and it should be a little bit of an improvement. So you've got that announcer tone now, says Brexel. Yeah, exactly. I got crap in my throat. Excuse me. Gotta clear my throat. Drink some coffee. Delicious. Okay, so yeah, and once again, sorry for being late. Now let's see what you guys have been talking about. If you're not, I think I was a little more than fashionably late today, to be honest. So I apologize, but I'll get it together. Next week I'll be more on time. At least I let you guys know earlier, right? So you could talk amongst yourselves while you waited for my slow ass to get here. Yeah. So what else? Today I'm going to be working on. I'm going to get into some video stuff again. So what I've got here is a PT cabinet, 412. Sorry. And I've got a couple microphones on it. So I've got a 57 on it, but I've also got a Roswell cab mic. And it's a really interesting microphone. I started playing with it yesterday. I decided to do it in here so that I could really, just have control. There's disadvantages and advantages. The disadvantages are obvious. The cabinet's right there. So it's loud and can't, kind of tune in through the studio monitors in the same way. Kind of need to record and then listen back to hear what you're hearing, but or to hear what the microphone's hearing more accurately. But anyways, I think it's cool. It's interesting in that you'll notice the position. It's a 412 that it's on. It's dead nut center right on the speaker right now. And that's where they recommend you put it. And that's where it wants to be, really. Because it's a rather dark microphone. It actually kind of rolls off above 3K, I think, fairly steeply. And they've kind of designed that for guitar specifically. They've designed it to be really impervious to sort of volume, like level. You can nail it with a ton of level. And also it's not super high gain because they're expecting that you're going to throw some volume at it. So, and then they kind of voiced it like a ribbon microphone, but it's a condenser, I do believe. So with the high end roll off and everything, and meant to be really easy to position. I guess they went, well, if we roll off the top end, so there's no fizz because it doesn't really pick up the fizz. We can make it so that you can just put it right in the middle of a speaker, position it really like just find the center of the cone and put it right there, and then it should work. So, but that's it's just different than just about every other microphone I've used. I guess it's sort of ribbon-esque. I usually find ribbons work best centered on a speaker. This has a rather tight pickup pattern though. Whereas ribbons will generally be, just because of the nature of the design, they'll generally be figure 8, so they can kind of tend to pick up sound from the back too. In practice, it's not that big of a deal because on a loud guitar cabinet, you're obviously getting a ton of sound from the front and not much from the back. So, the figure 8 thing is debatable how much of a big deal that is. Some ribbons, it can be helpful to put one of those, I think, on any microphone really, but especially a ribbon that's figure 8. One of those SE filters that goes around the kind of is like a foam filter that you put on a stand, and it goes around the microphone on the cabinet, and that kind of keeps the any sound from getting in the back and makes the sound tighter and more pure and stuff. So anyways, I'm gonna play with it some more today and kind of record some stuff, probably make a little video and stuff and put that out and see what you guys think. It's an interesting microphone, for sure. Something engineered specifically for guitar cabinets. And it's a little different than what I'm used to. I'm used to mics with a lot more top end kind of on tap. So to be able to just put it dead center and trust that and go, yeah, that's where it should live, The goal with it also, I'll just say one more thing about it, being that you're also supposed to put it back a little bit further than like a 57 or something where you're stuffing it up on the grill. They recommend 6 inches back from a cabinet. That's pretty far. So I think that maybe where I'm arriving at on it is that it's probably really good for some things, maybe not as appropriate for other things, depending on what you're doing with it. But I'll let you know. I'll let you know what I come up with. There's a super chat from Tellyman. Thanks, man. Appreciate that. Keeps the coffee flowing around here. I appreciate your super chats. I do. There's Ben. What's up, Ben? Don't forget to hit the like. Thanks, Ben. Just reading some other comments here. What Germino do you have? So the Germino I have is a Headroom 100 that's been modified. There it is. Yeah, it's got a bunch of, you can just see the extra knobs there. It's got a bunch of Jose stuff going on. So basically what we got here is the volume 1 and volume 2 that would normally be on a 4-hole or Marshall are now moved here. And then these are 2 masters now. Both style of master that you would find on a typical, well, not typical, but Jose mods. So the pre-EQ master, the post-EQ master, and you can kind of switch between them. And then this is the gain boost for the Jose mod. And it's a cool amp. I might sell it. Yeah, it's a really, really good amp, but I've got a little bit of other stuff going on around here that makes it a bit redundant at this point. So if anybody's interested, it could probably be put back to stock as well pretty easily if somebody wanted to do that. It sounded great stock, which was just straight up, the Headroom 100, loud, and I mean it's kind of super bass spec, I think, is what a Headroom 100 is. Man. What is this? Super bass spec is what it was. So it sounded real Malcolm Young and punchy when I got it. And then I bought it specifically knowing, I bought it from a store in Nashville where it was on consignment. And I bought it and had it shipped out here specifically knowing I was going to mod it. Oh my God. And then, so of course I made the mistake of plugging it in right after I got it here and trying it and going, oh, now I don't really want to mod it because it's awesome, but I've got similar other things around. So it was like, no, I went ahead and did it. Yeah. Okay. What else? Tim tested it, said somebody, and gave his thoughts before it was released. Is that the microphone, Lauren? So what did Tim think about it? I actually called him yesterday to pick his brain on it. I was wondering how he liked it, and what he found, I was just kind of wanted to know his thoughts on it because it's just different. Does your Dynamount robotic microphone stand have a holder for that size mic? Good question. The Dynamount doesn't work with everything. I think it probably would work with this mic. Because it just kind of has a standard attachment on it. But the Nextdyne Shure mic I have sort of works with it. But because of the angle of the microphone and stuff, it kind of, you can only do certain movements with it. So I can't go all the way right and left on a speaker. I can only go from the center over to one side and then back and forth. I can't shoot over to the other side of the mic because the Nextdyne kind of sticks down right where it's hard to explain, but you'd understand immediately if you saw what I was talking about. So just certain microphones don't work as well with a Dynamount as certain other ones. But I'd have to try it. But I think this one, because of the nature of I don't think they're, well, that's a really good question. Because the cable sticks down. It might be the same issue as the Nextdyne where I can only go one way and back and forth. I just haven't tried it yet. I pretty much mounted my cab mics, like where they are out there. It's a little tough to get in there and try different things. So once I do something with it, I kind of leave it. And then when, if I get in there and I move it, it's always like, okay, now I got to go it ends up being a half an hour of recalibration and things like that if I go in and I move anything around in there. So it's just a bit of a pain in the butt. Okay. What else have we got here? Let's see. Gigi says, how you doing? I'm doing pretty good, thanks. Not too bad. Not too bad. Yeah. What else? I thought you were selling that amp. I just haven't done it. But I would, if somebody's interested in it, let me know. Hit me with an email. It's a great amp. You've heard me use it before and stuff. It's a beautiful on the inside. I mean, all hand wired, and I would consider, it's, and Friedman did the mod, so it's basically a Friedman Jose. It might even be like a Jose's a little different the way he designed that amp with the 2 presence controls and stuff like that. But it's got all the other stuff, gain boost, the 2 masters that are switchable between the 2, the diode clipping that's switchable in and out. It's got all that good stuff. So it's kind of a unique amp. You guys know how to get in touch with me if you need to. So let me know. Will you be coming to Italy for any concerts or master classes? God, I would love to do that again. I really would. It's been a minute. The IK multimedia guys had me over a couple of years ago, and I had such a good time. Actually, a little solo trip to Italy, and spent a couple days in Venice, which I'd never been to. A day in Bologna. It was really nice, kind of after the whole IK experience, which was also nice. It was really fun, that trip. I'd love to get back there. I guess I've been there since. I was there with Satchvai the year after that. Was it the year after that, or maybe another year after that? I don't know. It all runs together now. It's that weird thing with just getting older and also the pandemic. It's like post 2022. It's like, was it in 2022 or was it in 2025? I don't know. Like, when did I do that? Anyway. But I don't have any plans right now for it, but I am planning some clinic-y, classy, appearance-y style stuff for November, actually. And so a few things going on, but that's all in the States right now, in the US. I'd love to do some more Europe stuff, though. So, another fun run of Europe. I was gonna go to Guitar Summit this year, but I don't think I am now because there's another gig that's come up. So I think I'm gonna end up doing that. It's a thing in the Caribbean that it's like, would you like to go to Guitar Summit, in Mannheim, Germany, or would you like to go to the Caribbean for a week and do a couple shows with some days off in the middle? And I'm sort of like, that sounds pretty good to me. I think that's what I should be doing with my time. Anyway, yeah. I noticed Satriani was using a condenser mic when you were on tour. Do you know which one? So Joe had, I think, some Shures. He had 57s and Shures, I think. And they might have been KSM 32s, but I'm not 100. Don't quote me on that. I'd have to look at some pictures. I could probably tell from photos, but he would use them both and then blend them. Yeah. Joe's tone in my in-ears, it was interesting because in the in-ears, it was quite dark to me, and times I would have trouble hearing him well. It was a very big sound, and kind of darker. In the PA, when I would watch any videos, it sounded epic, really, really, really good. So maybe I was getting I'm just not sure. We didn't just because of the nature of kind of the way we were doing things. I didn't have a lot of time to play with that kind of stuff. So I would have had I had more time, maybe, and the ability to spend a little more time, like going, okay, show me what the 57 sounds like on his amp, and then show me the Shure, the condenser, and let me get a blend that's more, you know what I mean, like to my liking. Because sometimes it was hard to hear him, which it would either be, you know what I mean. It's hard in ears. In ears are always a struggle for me. But who cares what I think? I could. It was fine for me. And then when I heard whatever was going on in the PA, it sounded like epic. So you know, that's another thing, of using in ears. It's like you can start to tune in the position of the mics and everything for your ears, which is like, no, you want to actually like what's going on in the PA is the most important thing. And then because of course the audience, you're there to play for them, but you've got to enjoy it too. So it's always that mix of stuff. Speaking of in-ears, and this is kind of a good segue because as guitar players, we always struggle a little bit, but I think I'm going to start using Furs, FIR, Fur in-ears. Have anybody heard of them? It's like, I guess, an offshoot, not really same company, but it was like the brother of the guy that started 64. And so his brother's gone and started a different inner company now. There's two companies. And I went and listened to some generic versions of them, and I thought they were really awesome. They've got some different things going on with bass. Like they've got these like rear firing drivers that kind of connect with the bones on the side of your your ears and stuff, and create this, I don't know, kinetic bass thing or something. Long story short, in practice, what it sounded like to me is just like not more or less of anything than a normal in-ear, but way more clarity. Like it was like the clarity through the lows and it made my in-ears, which are good, and I've used them for years. I've got numerous pairs. I got a pair of Ultimates, and I've got some these ASIs that I was using that have mics in them and stuff. And then I've got 64s, which were kind of the most consistently, like, I got the most used to, I guess, the 64 A5s, which they don't even make anymore. They're making A4 and A6 now. The A5 was a 5 driver, good sounding in-ear. I've had them for a long time, probably too long because, your ears change as you age and you're supposed to get new molds done and stuff. But anyways, I've used them for ages, and they made my 64 sound like a little smeary, like a little, like, not the clarity of all the frequencies and everything just was just like hyper focus of all the frequencies and stuff. When I tried the Furs, just more clarity. And I was like, well, that's a good thing, I think. So I think I'm gonna get into that and try those in my seemingly never ending search for an in-ear that I like at least more than any other one. Yeah. Any neck pickup recommendations for an EDS 1275 for both 6 and 12 pickups? I was thinking about those guitars the other day because the interesting thing about them is the distance between the pickups seems greater because there's only 20 frets, right? So it moves the neck pickup further out, I think. Kind of interesting. And which might make it darker, I would think. I've never owned one of those guitars. There was a beautiful Greco copy in Ochanomizu in Tokyo that was like pretty reasonably priced. And I thought, oh my God, this is a pretty cool opportunity. Like it was a cherry red, at first look, you would have just thought it was a Gibson for sure. But it was Greco. Pretty cool. But I didn't get it. That's the closest I've ever come to one of those. Anyway, I would go for something super T-toppy, kind of low output. I mean, Thornbucker might work pretty good, to be honest. My own pickup, I know I'm recommending, but it's a slow, 7. That's what it does. It's kind of known for clarity. And it's an A5 magnet. There's 7.3 or 4K. I mean, it's that thing, it's kind of more that approximate T-top-y kind of style pickup. Just lots of clarity, and it would split, and be a pretty low output single coil, but probably work pretty well. But that's what I would do. I would go for T-top style, just a 7, like sub 8K pickup that's known for being bright and clear, because it's way out there in the neck and it's a mahogany body and stuff. So you're going to want that extra treble and not too much going on in the bass, or, too much power for sure. Yeah. Do you use an EQ pedal before the amp and or in the loop? Sometimes. The Unit 67 is a pedal that I have on my board that I run in front of everything. And it's basically like a boost compressor and EQ in one, kind of a tone sweetener sort of thing. So on the Unit 67, it's got a bass and treble, and it's got a mid boost, which I run way up, kind of a Rangemaster style. It's not exactly like a Rangemaster, but it kind of does that thing and gets you a pretty cool, like, more pokey kind of, tone in that vein. And then the bass and treble. So that's an EQ. Essentially, I'll use that sometimes. Like a graphic or anything like that. No. Although, okay, so I had on my board for the Classic Rock Show tour earlier this year. And I really need to put this video out. The guys are going to hate me that I made it for, but I made a video, like, it's been a year since they sent me this pedal, but it was this PEQ3 clone, which was that classic parametric equalizer from Furman, they made in the 80s, and a lot of hard rock guys started using it to boost their amps and kind of fine tune the EQ. It's a recreation of that pedal, and I did use that on tour for kind of a more 80s sort of vicious, distorted. I used it on a Whitesnake song, used it on Ozzy, some stuff that we did, to just kind of cut bass a little, accentuate upper mids and accentuate treble going into the amp in order to, kind of drive the amp into more natural overdrive and sizzling hard rock distortion. So that I used. I've never had a graphic on my board or in the loop that I've really, although a graphic in the loop or post amp, like with a load to kind of fine tune the sound, is pretty cool. So it's just not something I've ever really incorporated. But the parametric EQ, for the first time, that was a real fairly sophisticated EQ that I did use on a board for this 2-month tour earlier this year. There's kind of like the two different schools of thought. Like, you're either doing something in front of the amp to kind of shape the tone of your pickups or boost into the amp, and then, like, in the loop is more overall tone shaping and much more like carving of, the tone overall post distortion. The two different sort of ways to do it. Ray says, I'm wondering if you had any advice on how to break into the scene in Japan. I have a bachelor's Japanese, play guitar and write good. But every band or company interested can't help with a visa. Oh, I mean, if the band is that interested, they'll help you with a visa. That's all I can say. If they really want to do something with you, like when I go in there and work, they have to get me a visa every time, so if they really want you, they'll do it. I don't know how else to describe it. I mean, there's other ways to kind of go there and do things, but you don't want to work illegally or anything like that. So, there's things like a nomad visa where you can go do digital things for like 3 months at a time, or maybe it's 6 or something like that, which means you can work remotely, doing guitar lessons or whatever you're doing, I think, and kind of, but I think there's a pretty strict, like, you can't move off that visa. Like, you can't transfer from that visa to another class, I don't think. They expect you to go and then leave after, that kind of thing. It's a way to go, though, and do things. I mean, a tourist visa gets you there for a few months. You can go and just kind of kick around, but you can't work. Yeah, it's just I don't know. I got lucky, I guess. Like I mean, somebody wanted me bad enough that they got me the visa, and then I went and worked on the visa. So when I go there, always a promoter. There's a set period of employment, of and gigs and rehearsals and things where it's like, this is the work he's doing. These are the people hiring him. This is the purpose of he's getting hired as an entertainer to come and do these things. And it's all very laid out. And, Japan, as I guess, is super rules based and all that. And there's a ton of paperwork involved in everything. And, it just is what it is. You always want to make sure you're doing it on the up and up and respect that and everything. But yeah, all I can say is like, you just have to find the right situation where people are willing to go the extra mile. And, um, I guess you could say, that you would pay for it, as far as, any kind of preparation fees or application fees. Like, hey, I just really want to go. So if you guys would be willing to sponsor me, I know you could hire somebody there instead and not have it, put you out at all. Why don't I offer to pay for the fees and come up with a creative solution, so that they'll sponsor you and pick you to do it. I don't know, something like that maybe. But yeah, in closing, I would just say, just make sure that you always do it the right way and cross your T's and dot your I's and stuff like that. And just, uh, you know, because it has gotten a little tighter in the last couple of years. I know there's that sort of, I mean, they're kind of going through this dichotomy of like, there's an anti-immigration thing that's happening there right now. And then also immigration is really helping to drive their economy. So because, they've got declining population, they've got issues with that. They've got, a really weak yen. And so sort of hordes of tourists coming there and doing things, spending money and stuff is actually helping in many ways keep businesses afloat. But do they like it? Not really. So it's like this weird combination of, all that. We don't like you, but we need you. Please pay for your things and get out and come again, I guess. Man, I don't know. I'm spitballing, but you know what I'm talking about. You spent some time there, right? It sounds like so. How's that new H9? Is the tone suck on? Haven't gotten into it yet. Why did you find there was tone suck though? Because I never found that. So it would be that's your specific kind of anecdotal situation, but it could be a lot of issues that you were having. Like, you got to make sure, for example, that whatever amp you're using has a properly buffered effects loop. Or if you're running the pedal in true bypass, let's say you had an amp with kind of a crap loop, which a lot are, to be honest, and it wasn't properly buffered, and you were running the pedal in true bypass and you had it in an effect loop with some 20-foot cable runs going to and from your amp, you might have very well found that it didn't sound very good in the loop of an amp. That's a problem. You know what I mean? But like in a PT100, like John obsesses over his loops. So there's, a PT100 has an amazing effect loop. PT15 has an amazing effect loop. They're implemented in different ways. The 100 is a fat style loop. The 15 is a tube driven loop, I do believe. I think slightly different design, but it's always going to be properly buffered, which is essential because you're running those long send and return cables sometimes out to a pedal board. So it really depends on your anecdotal situation, what you're using. Maybe it was in other pedals you were running with it, or, so tell me what you were experiencing or what the rig was, and we might be able to diagnose, because I never had a problem with an H9 at all with tone suck, and especially not if you've got, it's got a buffered option. And if you're buffering, there shouldn't be any change in tone at all. So it could be some other factor. What else? Tim liked the Next9 too, but he still prefers his special old SM57. Yeah, once you get used to a mic and a placement, it can be tough. I mean, I was trying this mic, this Roswell, next to a 57 yesterday, going back and forth. And the 57 just, like it or not, it just does this thing. And it's like, it can be hard to get away from if you're like, well, I gotta kind of can't throw that thing in the trash that I've heard for the last however many years, unless it drives you insane, you know. Um, I've been using the Next 9 in place of a 57. They're not the same, but I've been using it as my dynamic, and then using kind of my be all end all mic has recently has been that Soyuz, the 1973, where if placed right, that thing blew my mind. Like when I first got it, if you saw that microphone test I did on Guitar Cabs at Sweetwater. So I've been using that in combination with the 57. I do want to put a little more time into placement with it, but on my studio cab, both those mics sound great right now. So yeah. Thinking of lowering the filtering on my Marshall 1959 hand-wired to EVH spec. Why not? I would. A little more haze, a little more squishy. Fun times. So the Roswell needs a 57 to fill in the top end that's rolled off. Well, no, I would say that the problem is maybe, you can't really do that, because with the Roswell, it wants to be a little further back from the mic, from the cabinet, excuse me. They're suggesting about 6 inches and then experiment. You never really put a 57 6 inches back from a cabinet. So you're going to end up with phase issues. And the way they're kind of building the mic is this is the one-stop shop. Like, use this microphone, place it right in the middle of the speaker, and place it back a little bit and just record. There's your natural amp sound. And it does sound quite a bit, because of the nature of kind of the way that we listen to guitar when we're in a room. It sounds a lot like kind of the amp in the room, where you never hear the speaker right in the middle, right? You're off from it a ways, and kind of hearing the tone off axis, which is never as bright. So it kind of has that character of like, you put it right in the middle of the speaker, back it up a little bit so it's capturing a fair amount of the the throw of the, it's not just like one pinpointed position. Backing it up, it's got ample bass, the microphone, so you don't need many times the reason you stuff a mic real close is for punch and for bass, because they get fatter sounding the closer you put them, because of proximity effect. More bass the closer in. Well, this mic has proximity effect too, but it's got ample bass in it already. So their thinking was, pull it back a little bit, you're capturing more of the overall speaker, you're getting the kind of the purest tone without distortion from the cone or anything like that, because it's right in the middle. And you don't blend it with another microphone because it's getting the whole thing. So it's easy, one-stop shop. That's their kind of their sell on it. So you know what I mean? You couldn't really effectively blend it with a 57 unless you did some serious sort of phase alignment, because if the 57 stuffed up close where it wants to be, never more than an inch back with a 57 really, then the other mic 6 inch, it's gonna be comb filtery sounding. So yeah. So it kind of comes down to, do you like the sound of the mic with the slightly, right in the center of a speaker and the slightly rolled off top end? Is it what you want? So I got to spend a little more time with it. Yeah. On your new signature, what are the 5 positions on the switch? So the all the way towards the neck position, we used to call that 1, but now they call it 5. That position is split humbucker neck. The next position, let's call it position 4, is full humbucking neck. The next position, position 3, that's both humbuckers together. The next position, position 2, is the inside coils of the 2 humbuckers, both humbuckers split. Very cool sound that I use all the time. Low gain, but stringy and beautiful for, the kind of 80s clean stuff, or if you want to stay out of the way and just play cool parts behind a singer-songwriter or something. And then all the way down, position number 1, that's the bridge pickup in series. And then you can pull the tone out to put the bridge pickup in parallel if you want to. Still humbucking. Why the 412 in the studio? Just because it's right here, and then I can play with microphone position, just backing up and doing it, and just do it on headphones. And it's not hard to position the mic in here, so because they want it dead center. So I could do it in the other room, but the way that the cab is kind of buried and stuff, it's just I just thought this is easier. I can do it here. I can then I can also add an advantage. You can see it on camera if I'm filming in here. So I'll record a simple track with it today and some parts through it and make a little video on it and stuff so you can see it. I got to get back into making the videos, and it's been like getting back on, the horse again, like to get me in here and start making some videos again. But I figured this was a good one to do, an easy one. I could just write a cool little track with some simple guitar parts and show off pretty simply the difference between, say, the sound of a 57 and the sound of the Roswell. So, yeah. Have you experienced your amp sounding more gainy or distorted live than in practice? It's almost like the other way. Like sometimes I feel like live, I'm like, it's kind of not enough gain or something. That can happen, especially in in-ears. The feeling can be that you just want more like girthy drive or something. But the reality is the amp is like cooking, and plenty distorted, So I almost have the opposite. I don't know what's up with that, but the only other thing with that is it's like sometimes I find, different stages, different rooms, like a hard floor can sound really more abrasively, reflect your guitar right up into your ears, on carpet, it can sound quieter, like a carpet stage, quieter, more controlled. So maybe it's that, like if you're in a real loud room, loud environment, hard stage, the amp can sound a little more wild for sure. The other thing that I've found is sometimes Class A amps, like AC30s, or they run hot, and after a while, it's like, did somebody turn on a fuzz box? They can just sound like dirtier after a while. But that's kind of rare, I guess, that I've noticed that. What do we got here? 268 people online. Thanks for showing up, even though I was late. Anybody listen to Jack White album? Interesting mix, very guitar forward. We like that. Vocal is actually less prominent than the guitar in many spots. Well, you're making me want to listen. You're speaking my language. I'm going to check that out. I saw a clip of him recently, and he sounds like he's making good volume on stage. He's got those 3 signature Fender amps all tilting back, almost like Bruce Springsteen style, kind of up, Maybe I'll have to try that sometime. It's pretty cool. Like, like the 412s or 410, and it's like, I guess his cabs are probably like 212s and a 15 or something, right? But they're angled back and pointing up like 45 degrees into the air. So kind of cool. I got to give it a listen. Have you ever used a Chase Tone Secret preamp? Is that the is that I had a thing called the Secret Overdrive years ago. I bet it's different. Secret preamp. No, Chase Tone. Looking at pictures here. Wait, let's see here. Oh no, I've never seen that thing. Interesting. Perfectly fine-tuned. Perfectly iconic. What is it? Same size preamp circuit, same size preamp sound. Back order due to demand. I'm not sure if this is I don't think it's the pedal that I have. Somebody made me a pedal called the Secret, but I think it was called the Secret Overdrive, and this is going back 13 years ago or something. Yeah. I don't think it's that. What is happening with my screen here? Okay, there we go. Synergy needs to make a Jose Friedman module. That would be pretty cool. Maybe they'll do that. Okay. Awesome to have you back and be able to chill out at your home and studio in SoCal. Thanks, man. Appreciate that. Yeah, I'm having a good time. I'm just kind of being nice to myself, and life's been crazy for the last little while, so I'm trying to kind of just really good, but there's also been some stuff going on and like everything, so I'm just trying to kind of be kind to myself and settle back into being back here and stuff, and also enjoy myself, trying to have a good time and just be, live a little because you only get one life. So when I grow up, I want to be you. I don't know, man. You're grandpa guitarist already. But thank you, man. Appreciate that. Saw you at Wolf Trap. Great show. Curious if Steve mentioned the complexity of doing Fripp's parts in King Crimson. Oh, yeah. We talked about it all the time. Because he was, of course, going straight into beat after the Satch Vi tour, too, which is a tall order. He only had a couple days at home, and then he went straight out and did one rehearsal, I think, and then started with those guys. But Steve's a next level. Obviously, there's only one Steve Vai, so what better man for the job? We tried a little bit of it. I think like frame by frame, he showed me, he goes, okay, play this part. Now I'm going to play this part. And then he showed me how they move around one another. I think that was the song we were doing, or maybe it was a different song. But anyways, I went like, what? Like, how do you... and he had me play. I was just laughing. It was really fun. And then he showed, okay, don't change. And then he went to this other part and I could do it, but it was like, oh my God, that is a mind bender. It was really amazing. Yeah. Anyway, I miss all those guys. I miss Steve. I miss Joe. I miss Kenny. I miss Marco. So we had a lot of fun. Yeah. Yeah. What else? This may be an odd question. Have you ever experienced or known of stepping up a string gauge to cause fret buzz? It's usually the other way around, I would find. But you never know. I mean, things can happen with, like everything affects everything. So you put a different gauge on and now you got to kind of re-intonate. You're moving your bridge saddles around and things can just happen that are unexplainable sometimes. So it's usually the other way. I would say going from like 11s to 9s or 10s to 9s or something, you might notice more buzz for sure, because the neck's going to bow back a little bit too, which can create more buzz in the middle or the lower part of the fingerboard. So you want to address that. But the other way around, I got to say, I've never really noticed that. But I'm not saying it could. I've seen all kinds of crazy stuff happen. So, yeah. Are you coming to Guitar Sanctuary? I know we were set. I know you were set to come before you went on tour with Satch Vi. I'm not sure about that, actually. Like, if there's one of those dates on deck, I'll have to look into that. I know I have some stuff that's brewing for the fall that's kind of Midwest. So we'll see. Yeah, I'm open to doing all kinds of stuff. So, yeah. Do you like Michelangelo Badio? You know what I like about that guy? I think he's a one of a kind. He does his thing and he's still doing it. And I remember him doing it in the 80s. And he takes a lot of crap, I think. I don't know, like image and stuff. I met him once. He was lovely, like such a nice guy. Just a dude. Really, really, really nice. I met him not far from where I am right now at a rehearsal studio, and he was very nice. And I just like that he does his own thing. He's a little like Ingve in that way. He's like he just seems to soldier on and doesn't care about because these guys, they get some guff sometimes from people out there. So anyway, I'm not. It's not going to follow him or know his music really well or anything, but he's obviously a crazy technician, ambidextrous, and all that. And you got to hand it to him because he's there's one of them, and he does his own thing. So I always respect that. Let's see. What do you do when you're not playing music? Favorite hobbies? Well, my latest hobby is working on Japanese, actually. So every morning I study Japanese for about an hour, and I love it. I get up and make coffee, and then I do that. I did it this morning, so sorry I was late, but I can't not do it. It's like I'm that committed to it. I'm on like I do it on Duolingo, which isn't. It's kind of amazing. It's like maybe not the best way to learn language, but it's something. And I think I'm 710 days now. Doing it every damn day, so yeah. I just got a message from Sorry. I just got a message that I don't know why I looked at it because I've got ADD and I looked at it, but it's from my friend Jarrett. That he says he's always like, I always bug him because he subscribes to my Instagram and my, and I'm like, hey man, you subscribe to me. Like I don't subscribe. And he's like, I'll be like, did you watch my latest video? It just gets kind of like, we just joke around. But anyways, he said, Christian, that was my tech on the Satisfy tour. Christian and I are currently out on the Sarah McLaughlin tour together. We've decided to use our influence to get people to unsubscribe from your channel and all your socials. You're going down, Thorn. Which is his way of saying, like, hey, I miss you. Anyways, there they are. Anyway, I love that. That's what I'm going to tell him. Love you too. Oh, okay, sorry. Anyways, other hobbies. Eating. All kinds of food. Getting out in cities and walking around, like just kind of discovering, is a big one for me. Like going, just going, and animals. I mean, I'm so into animals these days, that I just love spending time with dogs, cats. So if I go to like a town, and I'm on tour, yeah, my day is going to consist of probably working on some Japanese, like I'm talking about like a day off or something or downtime, working on some Japanese, probably going to find the best coffee I possibly can because I'm a snob, some really good food, and maybe going to a cat cafe. So those are my hobbies as of late. That's it. Good question though. Yeah. I had a Gibson EDS 1275. Didn't have it long after playing it for a while. Standing up, I was on my knees to trade it for a Les Paul Standard. Yeah, it's a very specific thing that you kind of use for a reason. I will say this. I always thought that on The Song Remains the Same, the best guitar sound is when he's playing the 1275. I find that interesting. Listen to it if you get a chance. The guitars on that particular, on Song Remains the Same, that particular concert, it just, when he plays that double neck, it sounds killer. So I don't know, just something I noticed. I mean, it kind of makes sense. Big giant slab of mahogany that probably weighs 15 pounds. Yeah. There's a guy in Australia named Brian who makes awesome sounding T-tops and Super 70s. Cool. Yeah, T-top style pickup is pretty cool. I mean, makes sense it's in Australia because that's kind of the Angus thing, maybe. What do you think is closer to the early Van Halen tone, SD78 or 59? Well, as you'll find if you watch that Van Halen pickup video I made years ago, I'm of the mind that we're talking about two different pickups. One of them being the here's one here, the classic super distortion style with those hex poles, and a big fat overwound, coils of ceramic magnets, skinnier wire, what is it, a 14K ceramic situation, or is it 16K? Maybe it's 14K ceramic, 13.8 to be exact, I think. Hot super distortion. So I think that's one of the guitar sounds we're talking about, and then I think the other one we're talking about is a PAF of some sort. Was it already wound by Seymour? I was talking about this with Friedman the other day because we still talk about this stuff. But the pickup that supposedly went in the Frankenstein was out of his 335, which was a 60s 335. So it would have been a low output, either A2 or A5, probably. Probably short magnet jobby. PAF style thing, or early patent number style pickup, and then at some point Seymour winds that pickup, and it's supposed to, it had an A2. So maybe if Seymour didn't replace the magnet, we'll say it was A2 originally, and he wound it up with as many turns of wire as you could get with the 42 gauge, is that right, or 43, whatever the fatter, the slightly thicker wire was, and you can get about 9K out of it when you for however many turns, So if you wanted to wind a hotter one, you'd have to use a thinner wire, because then thinner wire, more turns. So wind it up more turns, thinner wire. So as many turns as you could get out of that slightly thicker gauge wire. I think it's 43. And they ended up with a 9K. So long story short, I think we're talking about two pickups. We're talking about a PAF style pickup, and we're talking about a distortion style pickup that was either a Mighty Mite or DiMarzio, probably. And that's the difference in some of the tone on Van Halen 1, I think, is the big, You Really Got Me. We know it's the Destroyer. That big, fat, broad distortion sound. And then Ain't Talking About Love is more just that kind of the tremolo guitar with the PAFE pickup. And it's a different sound. Listen to those two tracks, Ain't Talking About Love or You Really Got Me. And you've got the two different pickup tones there, I think. That's what I think. Yep. Okay. What else? There's a big old super chat there. I gotta grab that in just a sec. I will do that. Do you have concert earplugs that maintain sound quality? What I discovered is AirPods actually. AirPods have a noise reduction mode that, like, if you have in AirPod 2s or 3s, they won't go above 95 dB. Like, they'll attenuate sound above 95. So what I found was if I'm suffering a little bit, I'll just put the AirPods in, and it's pretty damn high fidelity and sounds really quite good. And there's minimal delay or smearing or any of that kind of stuff. And that's my concert earplug as of late. I do have these other ones, these Etymotic ones that are pretty cool. But to be honest, I like AirPods. So that's my recommendation, is try those. You can put them in the adaptive mode, and then I think they limit it like 93 or 90, something like that. Or if you put them in transparent, it's 95. Nothing will go, but you'll notice right away that they're attenuating if you put them in at a loud show. And then you put them in the noise canceling mode, and then that goes way down, which that'd be probably too much. Yep. Speaking, but the fellow that was asking about Japan, isn't there an artist-specific visa he can apply for? Well, generally speaking, when you work in another country as an artist, you need he was mentioning that the bands or companies that he's talking to don't want to deal with a visa. Generally what happens is you've got a job offer from a company or a band or promoter, and they want to bring you over to do a set series of gigs or something like that, and they become your sponsor, right? So you don't apply for the visa, the sponsor applies for the visas, that's in the country, saying, hey, we're this Japanese company, we're a promoter for a concert tour, and we want to bring this musician over to be a part of this ensemble work for this specified period of time. Here's their history. This is who they are. This is why we want to bring them. So you need a sponsor. You can't just go, hey, I'm an artist, I want to go to Japan and try and get a gig, so give me an artist visa. That's not really how it works. It's more, there's got to be some job offer of employment, people that want to bring you, and they become a sponsor. Yep. Okay, what else? Some more talk about EQs. I use an EQ on my board for sound shaping. Currently have a board built with XTS modded Boss G7. My friends at XTS. My default has always been MXR 6-band. They're great. They're just kind of noisy, but both the Boss and the MXR are really cool. And I like the MXR 10-band as well. Really good. Yeah. Did you get the electronics sorted out on your Gold Top? I did. And I am loving it. And it's right here, actually. So I spent some time yesterday. There she is. Look at that thing. Come on. Oh, my God. I spent some time playing it yesterday. And it sounds great. And I compared it with my Yaren as well as my Scala. All the guitars sounded great, but there is something about this guitar. And you know what it sounded the most like is my old 335, which also has, this guitar has early 60s patent number pickups in it. So, you know, they'd be probably 7 point something K, high sevens. Maybe I think the bridge in this one is close to 8, or maybe it was like the neck was 8 and the bridge was 7.9 or something like that. Whatever's going on, it just sounds perfect. And I just noticed that they're not, like my Yaren was really, really close also, but has more bass, a little more bass in the tone, just a little. And this guitar just had a little more of that upper mid, like, you know, on everything. It just sounded a little more like that snarl or something in the upper mids with a little more, just a little more honk on it or something. It was really cool. So I've had some fun with it. And yeah, the electronics are all fixed up, long story short now. So it's the roll down on this thing's amazing. With the, I'm gonna make a video, I think, about this guitar, but the old Centralab pots, you roll them down and it just does the coolest thing. So they just roll off really quick, so it cleans up a lot. Yeah. Yeah, but I'm loving this guitar. You're going to see me using it. I'll probably use it today to make this little Roswell mic video as well. So, yeah. Okay. What else we got? I got to get that big old super chat there. There's a couple more, actually. There's, geez, you guys, thanks. Just in case you run into a cup of coffee, thank you, Arthur. Appreciate you, man. Thank you very much. Thank you. I'll catch that other one in just a second here. Are there times when certain pedals sound better in front of the amp as opposed to through the effect loop? Well, yeah. I mean, like, there's no hard and fast rule. Overdrives and compressors and all that, obviously, they want to be in front generally. Overdrives, compressor pedals. Sometimes you could put a compressor pedal if it's designed to be a kind of a line level compressor. I guess you could run it in the loop, but for the most part, the people are putting on a guitar board a compressor in front for the most part, compressing the guitar signal as opposed to the amp's preamp signal. The amp preamp thing is cool. It's just got to be kind of like a DBX style or something then that's real, clean and a work at loop level. And it's a different sound, more that LA studio thing. What else in front? I mean, all kinds of pedals work good in front, and then there's the rules get broken by people like Tom Morello putting a wah in the loop, right? He would run it in the effect loop, which makes it way more wah-ish, just more sweep and more, because your wah after distortion is just affecting the whole sweep of everything. It's way more dramatic sounding. So, and he'd use that to great effect. So no hard and fast rules. A delay pedal in front, it's always going to be dirtier and crashier, and that could be just a thing. Like if you're Jack White, you don't use effects loops. You run, there's reverb and delay or whatever you're doing. You're running into the front, and it's got a crazy sound and crashy, and that's part of your thing. If you're Steve Lukather, you're probably not running the delay in front of the amp. It's in the loop, and you're going for that more, liquid solo kind of thing. Yeah. Just wanted to thank you and buy you a coffee. Got to see you with 5 for Fighting in Colorado Springs. You took a quick picture with me right after the show. Oh, cool. Well, nice to meet you. And good to, I wonder, was that the one where I was like coming off stage and then I had to go kind of, I can't remember, but anyways, nice to meet you. Thank you for the super chat. I appreciate that. And thanks for coming to the show. Have you spent any time at the Silver Jubilee? A little bit. Never really my favorite. Just kind of always, like, I've actually borrowed one. It was one of the first amps, tube Marshall, that I had some good experience with in the late 80s there when it came out in 87 or 88. I remember borrowing one and bringing it to band practice because the local music store would because they knew I was insane and I would buy things. So they would lend me things sometimes. So I remember having one for like a weekend and taking it and using it. But I was always kind of like, I don't know. It's not really like my thing. It just yeah, I never thought they were amazing. So yeah, I, maybe I need to spend more time with it or something. But the few times that I've always been like, okay, like what is it about this thing that? But I think that's why they're kind of a. I mean, Bonamassa obviously loves it. You know, he's used them for years. In it's the one amp that's kind of remained consistent, I would say, for many years in his rig. So I find that interesting. Maybe I just need to spend more time with it. I know Quad Cortex is your preference. If you had to replace it with a different modeler, what would you use? Well, there's lots of. I mean, I've used the Helix a lot. I've used Axe Effects on the road. Um, I've got nothing but good things to say about all of them. Actually, they're all like, to me, it's like I've made the car comparison. Like, well, we're talking about an Infiniti, a BMW, and a Lexus here, and they'll all get you from A to B in good style with a lot of features, and it's just whatever you kind of bond with. Um, the quad, from it's almost like the user interface and ease of use. Also, the sound quality, is really good. But I got to say, the effects, like in an Axe Effects, for instance, we were talking about this the other day because I've been using a VP4 a bit on a board. They're excellent, man. Like Fractal's effects are really, 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 really good. So, you know, lots of good things to say. The new Helix Stadium, I'm supposed to maybe do something with in August, like video wise. So I'll get a chance to spend some time with it. I mean, I've heard good things about it too, and I've had good experience with Helix in the past. So Kemper's the one that I've used the least, I would say, but it's not out of it. I've got an original one. Would like to try an updated one at some point, but lots of friends that have used them on the road and to great effect. So they're all, it's all good stuff. I think, yeah, I could use any of it if it was like, look, this is what you're going to use. You need to learn how to use this, and for whatever reason, if I was tasked with that, be like, okay, and I could make it work and probably get sounds. You'd be like, well, that sounds just the same as when you use everything else, because they're all kind of like that. I mean, it's like it's down to you and learning how to use it, using your ears and making it work for you. Because there's nothing wrong with any of these things. We live in this golden age of guitar gear, really. Yeah. Does that guitar back there have a wenge neck? Wenge, is that a type of wood? It's a roasted maple neck that's quite dark. I know you can see it back there with the silver logo, and that's a PT traditional. It's just roasted maple, and roasted maple. Somebody said it gets quite dark sometimes, which is cool. It can look good. I like them when they're not too dark for a bunch of reasons, for being able to see the fret more. If you roast bird's eye and it gets real dark with all the figure of the bird's eye and then the darkness, try and see the dots. I mean, you can't, so for me, that gets tough. That's one of the reasons why I went to loom inlays. So you don't really have that problem. Like that guitar has, even if I can't see the inlays on the fingerboard, it's got the loom inlays in the side of the neck, so they glow bright. I can see where I'm at, no problem on my guitars. So I guess it's the best of both worlds. You get the dark kind of swirly bird's eye look, and then I can also see what's going on. But generally speaking, I like it if they don't roast them too much. Yeah, for me personally. Yeah. Okay, let's see. Have you had a chance to check out the Dark Glass Anagram multi-effects guitar workstation? I have not. Seen lots of people talking about it and stuff like that, but it's just that was all happening in the last week or two of me being on the road, and I've been a bit out of the loop, unfortunately. Can't do it all, but yeah. Do you think it would be good to run a Variac on my Jose and use it at 90, or is it something where I need to bias the amp to? Yeah, you always need to bias to a Variac, and I would say no. The Variac thing, kind of specific to vintage amps, really, and the tone of a Jose, you're getting a big part of the tone, the big massive part of it from the preamp of the amp. It's not really I mean, part of the tone of dropping voltage. Yeah, the Jose thing, when you drop voltage and you lower the headroom of the amplifier when you're doing that, because now you've lowered the sort of the effective headroom of the amp before clipping, really range of the amplifier before clipping. It's not making as much power anymore, and it just clips sooner and stuff like that. And the added gain with the Jose and everything, maybe it's like too much of all that soupy stuff, you know? So the answer is no. I mean, the Jose thing is good for, you want to brown out a vintage amp that it kind of has the effect of I wouldn't say it's like more gain, but sort of, because it's lower headroom, so the amp is distorting sooner, and that's really some power section stuff. Does it affect the preamp? Yes. It also, because you're lowering the voltage on the preamp tube, so it kind of does something there too. But generally speaking, I've seen people like lower voltage on amps, and I don't like it all the time. Like on old Fenders sometimes, and on certain, they just start to crap out sooner and sound like not as punchy and not as defined, all that stuff. Like whatever Eddie did with it, it was kind of magic, 90 volts on a Marshall. Just, yeah, that works. That had a thing for that one sound. But it wouldn't even be right for every sound. It'd be like if you're trying to get a little more headroom out of a Marshall or something, or then you're not going to get it. So I tend to love it on a Plexi. It's really good in general on older amplifiers if you've got like if you've got 120 volts coming out of the wall to lower any old an AC30 or old Fenders and stuff like that to 110. That's what the brown box does. To just kind of, because that's what those amps were sort of built to run at least in America. So they'll be a little happier there, a little friendlier, and you're certainly not going to hurt anything. But when we're talking about more modern amplifiers, it's certainly a Friedman Jose. It's made to work at 120, and I just don't really think. I mean, you can try it, but I think it'll be diminishing returns. And yes, you're going to want to bias for, you can't just take the voltage and drop it and then expect it to sound good. It's probably going to sound a little like it could do a little of that like cold distortion thing, it's not biased correctly for 90 or 100 or anything. So yeah. Okay. Let's see. Also, keep in mind that using a Variac on some modern amplifiers with modern switching stuff, like a PT100, for instance, with logic in it and things, you might hit a point where if you run the Variac low enough, that stuff doesn't work right anymore because it's wanting to see the 120. So, long story short, Variac's not for everything. Yeah. I gotta still hit that big old super chat there. I'm gonna do that in just a sec. Yeah. I haven't gotten to it yet. Do you ever feel like your hands stiffen up and not playing as accurate as the day before? Yeah, I mean, sometimes I get up in the morning, I'm like, what the heck, but that's just getting older, I think. And maybe the humidity and like, who knows, but I find generally just being kind to my hands, like a little warm-up routine and not trying to push them too hard right at the beginning. Don't expect too much out of them, and they always warm up to about the same place. That's what I find. Stiffening up and not playing as accurate as the day before, I don't know, you might want to talk to some sort of sports medicine doctor or something like that about that if it seems like your hands are consistently doing strange things, and just make sure that maybe there's some sort of strength testing they can do. I've often wondered if like I've got any kind of nerve, like, because I'm pretty slow with my left hand, like my trilling ability and stuff like that isn't what, I don't think I have the speed or strength that some guitar players do in their left hand. So I compensate in different ways in my playing for that. But I've often wondered, like, is there anything like tennis elbow or something going on with me where I could be potentially, alleviating that and be all of a sudden I'd be like, oh, it's better. So I do think about those things. But yeah. Will the PT50 have the feedback knob from the PT100? I believe we're doing that. Yeah. Do you like it? Let me ask you. Is it something that you dig? Because I like having it. I think it's good, So New Foo Fighters. Dave sang the whole album through a handheld PA. When you mean a handheld PA, you mean a handheld microphone, like a 57 or something? Or, I mean, I think Michael Jackson used to do that. SM7 like this used to be a mic that because you can kind of hold it like a 57, and people would like to do that sometimes. It just makes them feel like, instead of mic on a stand, and I got to stand in the same place, they can walk around a little bit and perform, and so you can get a bit of that. Get in that, whatever makes the performer feel like they can deliver their best performance with a bit more character and all that is probably the most important thing, right? So, yeah. Oh, that's interesting. Okay, the secret pre is an Acaplex style preamp. The shootout with Clinch on YouTube. I've used the Clinch one and I really quite like it. It's cool. Thoughts on Tom Anderson guitars? I only have played a couple, but they're really good, obviously high quality guitars that have a great reputation. And I know John's, old friends with Tom, and they go way back. And John has a great respect for Tom. And it's, just kind of like he makes, I think Tom's got like maybe 14 employees or something. And it's always kept the company at that level. And John kind of has a great respect for that it was always that it's like, he just does what he does, and he does it really well. But anyway, I sat down with one in Indonesia, kind of a high-end boutique guitar store in Jakarta, where I was doing a clinic, and I spent a little time with a Tom Anderson in there playing it. It's like a sir, they play terrific and really nice. Yeah. When you play with your cab in the room right behind you, how loud will you be running it? I kind of like to get it up in volume and, maybe like a low stage volume, that kind of thing. It doesn't really need to be louder than that to do what I'm doing, because I've got the load box here. I mean, I could run any amp into it and get the amp so it's cooking. I like the speaker, though, to be moving some air. Be a little uncomfortably loud if I'm sitting right here in front of it. My ears will start ringing, but I'll put headphones on. I'll play track with drums through headphones and stuff. So then it's not so bad. Certainly not at 50 or 100 watt plexi on 10 volume or something in here, but more like you're playing in a small club with a medium loud drummer, and you've got your amp, and that's kind of where I'll put it, and then just put the headphones on so it doesn't kill me when I'm sitting right in front of it. Yeah. There's that super chat. Belated birthday coffee. Thank you, Suzanne. Hey, I appreciate it. Thanks for all the guitar info. Welcome back. Thank you very much for the super chat and your well wishes. I appreciate it. I do. Are you a modeler live or pedalboard and amp guy live? Well, I've been for the last few years, both. Five for Fighting's been modeler, but always with a cab too behind me. I've never just... at least I've done it, but for the last 10 years, I've never gone just direct. Done a few gigs where in the past where, it was just either the modeler direct or a modeler. Yeah. But you know what I'm saying? Or amps loaded down direct. I did a whole tour like that in France, but lately, since at least 2016, I don't think I've done a gig. Yeah, the last 10 years where I didn't at least have a cabinet on stage, because I'm a big fan of cab on stage, guitar cabinet, moving some air and that I can lean into and get proper feedback out of and stuff. Big fan of that. But having said that, I've done both modeler direct and into a cab on stage, and full-blown amps into cab on stage. And then the way that I'm running full-blown amps and pedalboard these days with the load box, the IR load, with IRs going to the PA, is sort of like a hybrid of all of that too. So I guess the question becomes whether or not I'm using pedals and a tube amp or a modeler to kind of do the amp and effects into a power amp and a cab on stage for some air. Always IRs to the house is what it's been for the last while. So was that confusing? I think that was probably pretty confusing. I tried to be clear, but I don't think I was. The answer is I'll use it all. It depends on the gig. Yeah. Really depends on all kinds of logistics. Who would you recommend in LA to have my Marshall JVM modded to sound more like a plexi? Dave Friedman. definitely. Yeah, bring to him. He's the Marshall guy. I mean, he probably works on like 4 Marshalls every day for the past 25 years. It's a lot of experience with Marshalls. There's only so many of them in different circuits. So at some point it gets to be like, okay, I know exactly what this amp is and what it's doing and how I can make it better. So yeah. Yeah. Happy belated birthday. Thanks. It was in June, my birthday. The Roswell cab mic works best if it's right opposite the cone, but around 6 inches away from the grill. Yeah, that's what they recommend. And I definitely found that in trying it for the first time yesterday. I found that it wants to be dead center. Move it off, it just gets too dark. It's got a lot of mids in the kind of 2.5K range, like right below its roll-off point. So that's really good for making a guitar poke through. But then it's dark after that. So yeah, you're gonna want to. I would say I really want to try it with like a cleaner, like something like a Fendery sound today. Maybe I'll try the PT100 on channel 1 and try a sound that's a little less MIDI than what I had going yesterday. Like I had a Plexi, like the SL68 going yesterday, and there's a fair amount of mids in that sound, and then that combined with the microphone, it was like there's a lot of mids, so I think I might try it with a little more scoop of a tone today, a little cleaner, and see for that natural kind of in the room tone, like if I can get there with it. Yeah. Do you think a kick drum mic would make a good bass amp mic? They tend to. I mean, like when we think about the classic kick drum microphones, the D12s and 112s, you see people use them on bass amps. Maybe more often the one that you see is like a 421, which people will also use on kick sometimes, right? Or an RE20. RE20, the large diaphragm, maybe an SM7, large diaphragm dynamics. But an RE20 is one that, I've seen on bass amps and on kick drums. Yeah, maybe this mic could work good on a bass amp, to be honest. This Roswell, because not going much above 3K and kind of rolling off, that makes sense for bass. Might sound really good on a bass amp. Kind of out a little bit. Could. I don't know. What else? When you start dreaming in Japanese, you're on your way. Keep going. Gambate. Gambarimasu. That means to do your best. Gambarimasu. Gambarimashou. Let's all do our best. Yeah, I've had a little bit of that going on, the dreams. It's pretty cool. You dream like, well, even if it doesn't make sense, there's something like to it, or it's like, oh, that's cool. I'm thinking, I'm at the point now where in the courses that I'm doing with Japanese, Duolingo and stuff, it's reading me stories, and I really have to pay attention. Where it's like going by, it'll give you, 5 sentences of like something that's happening, and then you need to respond. Okay, so did it just say that this is happening or that's happening? But so you need to be listening to all these sentences as they're flying by, and it's like, oh man, but it's like I love it in a way too. I mean, it's like listening to a hard guitar solo that's flying by, and you're like, how am I ever going to learn this? And then you listen to it over and over, and you start breaking it down, and you can start to hear what's happening. And I love that. That learning process is really fun. So I'm getting there. I really can't wait till I turn a corner and I can start to it's already happened, I guess, where it's not like slapping me in the face, but it's like, I'll hear the whole first half of a sentence and I'll like, yeah, I know what that means. Like exactly, and it's cool. So And reading, I'm like getting better and faster. I notice like, as text is going by, I'm like, I can read about 40% of that as it's going by in hiragana or katakana. It's pretty cool. Getting faster. So, yeah. Languages are fun. They are. It's really fun. Do you know any other languages? Français un petit peu. I took in school like growing up, of course, and then I spent a bunch of time in France working with a couple different artists, and so I would work on like I think it was Babbel I was doing for French. Maybe not. Maybe it was Duolingo. Did a little Duolingo French. But I had the basics, a little bit of like, asking for, whatever. Un verre de vin blanc, s'il vous plaît. Stuff like that. Yeah. And I would, if I was to go back there and work, I would do that again. I would, let's dive back into some French, like 6 months before going or something. If I had that much notice, I would start working on it because it's fun. I do like languages. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. What else? Learning new languages is great for neuroplasticity. Yeah, that as I get older, I feel like, well, this ain't hurting nothing. Feels like it's probably a pretty good idea. As well as just continue working on music and stuff. But yeah, because that is too. Have you checked out the new X Freaklux pedal? I have not. I haven't seen that. That's one I gotta see, I guess. How's Toby? Toby's great. You want to see him? He's so damn cute. Let me find a recent photo of my cat. Well, here's the two of them. Last night. There they are. Look at them both. Thriving. Heck yeah. That guy on top, he's always sitting like that. If he lies down, it's always that. Arms straight out, legs straight out behind them with his big, fat, stupid tail. He's such a weirdo. Yeah, that's Nini. Okay, some super chats. Just picked up my first Sure Strat Thornbucker pickup rules. I love that it arrived ready to play. Gigged with it and love it. That's terrific. That's the best. Yeah, when they arrive and they're set up great. That was like my first Sure. That's how I got hooked. I bought one off the gear page used, and it showed up, and I pulled it out of the case and started playing it. And after 45 minutes, I was still sitting there playing. I went, wait a minute, this guitar's in tune, and I never tuned it. It arrived in tune and playing great, and it's just a pleasure. So that's when I knew that they were on to something, these Sir guys. Yeah. Yeah. What else? A fella saying he wants to trade a Les Paul Standard for a Firebird. We talked about that a little bit last week, I think, about Firebird's a definitely specific thing, and it's different than a Les Paul. So I'd be careful. Spend some time playing a Firebird before you do that, and make sure you like it on a strap too. Excited to start using your Vamram Los Lunas distortion pedal you brought back from Japan there in your studio. Yeah, well, I want to make a video with it because it's really great. The Los Lunas, it's in here somewhere. Really, really, really good sounding pedal. I think it's just actually outside the door. But yeah, it's an excellent distortion pedal. Really, really good. You have a Greco 1275 Jimmy Page. Do you? Yeah. So that's like the guitar I saw in Japan. Aren't as big as you might think. Not quite as heavy. 1275 out of only 20 frets. Yeah. Yeah. The 20 fret thing with the slightly different neck pickup position is what we started out talking about today. Yeah. Different thing, right? That kind of wide spacing. That's what Jim Gofstead said. Low output pickups often been guilty of overcooking the tone. Yeah, I mean, the lower, you get this diminishing returns thing where the resonant peak of the pickup goes lower. It's not as clear, and you kind of don't end up with a lot of mids, but and loud, but not a lot of treble. So it's interesting with the lower output pickup, the higher resonant peak, less bass. You kind of get more treble and upper mids, and it can kind of sound like it's got more. I don't know. Like it's a hot pickup can sound kind of dark, which a dark thing going into a gainy amp can be a good thing because it can kind of tame some of the sizzle. But like there's just a point where, you know, I think there's a point where when you lose too much top end and you're looking for a certain sound that kind of like, Angus Young, you want some, where like a bark, like you want some of that Marshall cow, you know what I mean? When you hit and if you lose too much treble and stuff, it's a hot pickup. It kind of can sound more like you're just pushing bass and mids into maybe the upper mids into it. And then and so there's not this clarity, and then it's louder, but not in a way that does that make sense? Like pushing all that stuff that's not necessarily exciting the amp. I don't know. There's just this thing with treble and guitar, like I was saying about my Les Paul, the pickups being kind of low. I mean, I think the bridge was 7.9 and the neck was 8.01 something like that. Like, and when the pickups are right there, they got a lot of top end, but it's a humbucker, so it's not like too much top end. It's just like good kerrang, and that hitting into a plexi or something is pretty cool. It's a sound. So then, the anomaly is when you get a super distortion or something like Van Halen. That's this different thing because of the magnet. I always find like Alnico magnets, they've got this mid-range bark that kind of moves around with the resonant peak of the pickup. A ceramic magnet is a big, broad sound. I don't know how else to describe it, but that's what I always know. It's a super distortion. Anybody know what I mean? Like if you've tried one, it's like there's a lot of bass and treble. Like it's just like this bigger, wider, less peaky in the resonant peak thing. That's what it sounds like to me. It's just this big, fat sound. Like it's the big muff of pickups. I don't know how else to put it, but like a super distortion just has a big, broad sound. And it's that magnet. That's the main difference, is putting one of those magnets in there. It's yeah. Yeah. I see Jack White's daughter played. Is that who that was? Okay, yeah. I saw. Oh, he's got a young girl bass player, but that's his daughter. That's cool. Good to know. Yeah. I seen him live once with Raconteurs in I want to say it was like 2008 or 9 or 10 or something. It's ages ago. That's the only time I've ever seen him live. I feel the 78 overwound PAF style pickup, but I feel a 250K pot shaves those glass breaking high sounds. I believe it may have fried the 500K with the switch and only had the 250K linear tone pot. I don't think so. I really don't think so. I mean, to me, Eddie always had a lot of top end back then. Glass breaking was part of it. Like there was plenty of the sizzle going on in Van Halen 1. I mean, all you need to do is go find you can find it on YouTube. I think the isolated tracks, of it's, there's ripping top end going on in his early tones. Not as much on, Van Halen 1 for sure. And then not as much as we get to, Fair Warning is darker, a little darker. Still got it though, but it's not the Van Halen 1 sound. If you really start to A/B, I think Brian Wampler might have done a video on this. If you start to A/B record to record to record to record to record, just how different the sounds are. It's like, well, what are we talking about anymore? Like what sound that's why I was saying like Van Halen 1, we're talking about two different guitars, but a fairly consistent amp setup. So I think there you at least get the consistency of most stuff, except for, is it the Destroyer or is it the Frankie guitar? And then you can kind of compare. That's where it's most interesting to maybe compare the 24 3/4 scale set neck guitar, maybe the distortion pickup, I think, going on in that guitar. That you really got me guitar sound. Compared to the tremolo guitar, ain't talking about love guitar sound. And those two different different style of guitar, different style pickup, I think, going into the same amp rig. Yeah. 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 There's a little more about Japanese visa. There's a type of artist visa you can self-apply for, but you need to prove you can only do your art in Japan and are making money on it. I mean, that would be like fairly difficult, right? As an entertainer, I just find the best thing to do is find a sponsor, somebody that's willing to go the distance and get you a visa for at least a few months or 6 months of work and go there and do that and get started and then see where it goes from there. Maybe you get another gig or you meet other musicians. They're like, we want to hire you now. And then you can change over to another visa or something. These are the paths that a lot of people, the take in Japan. One employer leads to another and you kind of, try and find your way, from one thing to another. It's not unlike what happened with me when I first came here. I worked for different people and went through different visa classes and all that stuff until eventually I got a green card and citizenship. So, yeah. Yeah. Have you ever tried an Ibanez Pia? I haven't. I saw them, daily with Steve, him playing them. But it's weird. I guess I had a thing about like maybe not like there's Steve Vai's guitars. I didn't even ask to pick them up, now that I think about it, was pretty shy to even be like, hey, can I check that out? I'm sure Doug would have been like, here, play it. Steve won't mind, but I didn't. I've played gems in the store and stuff, though, not a Pia. Yeah. Did you see Slash take a roll on stage? Poor guy, happens to the best of us. Yeah, exactly. I did see that. It seemed like he recovered pretty good. Those guys are running around. There's stuff all over stages. It's pretty easy to trip and fall down these days. Yeah. Gotta be careful. The Shure Next 5 cab mic is on sale right now, 40 off. It's a good mic. I like it. Definitely got some sizzle. It's got a big fat sound. It's like the super distortion of microphones. That was some marketing right there. No, it does have a big fat wide. Like it's not a 57. It's got its own thing. I like to actually get it out into the paper a little more than a 57 because it's definitely got some sizzle and bark going on. Have you heard of Bandmade, Japanese band? Yeah, I love that stuff. Japanese crazy bands. I love Japan. It's like the interesting stuff, Interesting music. I'm broke this week, so I owe you some beer money. Oh, you don't owe me a thing. You don't owe me a thing. You owe me nothing. So, what else? EHX compressor pedals good for post delay reverb dynamics on swells ambient stuff. That's cool. I haven't tried any Electro Harmonix compressor. I don't have a hell of a lot of their pedals, to be honest, man. I've got a Memory Man, and then I've got the Ravish Sitar, which I used on tour with Joe and Steve, just on a couple tunes. When I was playing Love of God, I had it on. Yeah. I prefer the sound of my Phase 90 in front instead of the loop. That's the standard place to put it. It's really a guitar phaser pedal that seems happy in front and kind of in front of distortion as well. If you've got distortion or overdrive pedals, that was the Eddie thing. Always, it was pretty far up front. So, yeah. Please make a full vid on the Gold Top when you have time. Full story and comparing to the 335. It's surprisingly similar sounding. The most similar sounding to my 335 of any guitar in this room. I think that. I mean, I tried it yesterday and I was like, oh yeah, they're really close. Which kind of stands to reason because they're both early 60s Gibson pickups. So they both have the T-top or patent number, pickup sound. Yeah. Yeah. Would you recommend a 6335 over a replica? I mean, they're fantastic, man. If you get a good 63 or 64, a player, that you can afford because they're not cheap, but I don't know. I mean, I'm sure there's some good replicas out there too, or historic. But there's something about the mine. It doesn't. Mine doesn't sound as good in the middle. I'm not crazy about the neck pickup. It's a PAF, and I've never loved the neck. And it could be the way it's kind of angled in the like it sort of sits back on the slug side is closer to the strings than the screw side. Uh, so maybe it's that or something. But man, the bridge pickup in it is like you guys have heard it on stuff. That guitar has its own little fan base, and it's all about that bridge pickup. It's just got a bark to it that's really cool. Yep. Steven Wilson puts his modulation in front of the amp as well. Yeah. I think Alex Lifeson did a lot of that. Like chorus or flanging in front of amps it's cool. Yeah, more chaotic, less clean. Anytime you put effect in front of distortion, that is a time-based, especially in time-based effect, it's going to be more chaotic because it's getting distorted by the distortion. Post distortion, it's you're kind of piling it on top of the distorted sound. It's not getting compressed or distorted by the distortion. It's almost like two separate things. Like adding delay to an already distorted sound, the delay doesn't become more distorted. But adding delay in front of a distorted sound, the delay hits the distortion and distorts. So it gets sloppier. Did you ever talk to Steve Vai about why he didn't continue to use Bogner Ecstasies? You got some great tones on Alien Love Secrets. I think he just was refining into a sound that he likes. I mean, this isn't his words, it's mine, but I think he described it to me when he was, because I think he used a Soldano for a time, and he used a ecstasy, and he described it to me as kind of using them for a season and then kind of moving, getting closer to whatever he was going for. He's not he'll tell you, I mean, he's not super into gear. It's not his thing. He's more a music, he's like, his mind is in the music. And I find sometimes that's the best musicians, because they're not focused on trying to, pick the best amp or guitar for that they think is going to make them sound better. They're actually practicing the guitar or working on guitar skills. We all know he got great sounds out of a Carvin X100B, for Blue Powder, for example. Or Steve's going to sound great no matter what he's using. So amp is almost superfluous, but definitely adds. So anyways, he used Soldano for a while. I think he used Bogner for a little while, and then he ended up with Carvin and probably kind of basing something off of, I don't know circuit wise exactly, but I think the Bogner was what he was using before. And then whatever he ended up with the Legacy was probably similar to that, just tweaked more for whatever he wanted. And then he seemed very happy with that for a long, long time. Obviously, then Carvin had, whatever happened with the business, and that was that. Synergy comes along, and, his module, I think, is really, 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 really similar to the Legacy front end. At least on the dirty side. So he describes it as kind of like he's not really into Marshalls. I mean, he is, but he's like, for his main sound, he's like, I got to be the lead singer for an hour and a half. I can't have like a screeching, like too bright, like too cutting. It needs to be kind of a round, compressed, friendly sound for a lead singer to be, playing for 90 minutes, which makes a ton of sense to me. And his sound, having played with him now in a band and worked with him pretty extensively, I would get it good and loud in my in-ears, and it always sounded great to me. Like where he's arrived at, I think, for him is just right. It sounds friendly. It sounds perfect in my ears. It's very like dialed in, and it's a sound that he can then work with to just do what he does. So anyway, Alien Love Secrets for sure. Cool. But, I don't know that it's like that different, the sound from what he, like, I like his modern, the sound on Little Pretty and the sound on, what's the song? Zeus and Chains. That sounds amazing to me. The Zeus and Chains guitar tone. Uh, it's beautiful because I spent a lot of time with it, obviously looking at it and learn the song, get inside it, and the big chords, with lots of distortion and big, close voicings ringing together and everything, and it still sounded really warm and gooey and fantastic and clear and warm and gooey and fantastic and clear. Anyways, okay. What do we got next here? Lots of people interested in this thing. Dark glass anagram, multi-effects guitar. Yeah, I've had a lot of people mention it to me and ask me about it. I haven't really looked into it that deeply. What is it about it that people are finding interesting? If I ask you guys, because how is it different? I know it runs. Okay, I know that there's an open source kind of thing. Uh, that is appealing to some folks from the perspective of let's see, I'm just looking it up here. It's anagram, high-end modeling. I know it's kind of like it just seems like it's sort of similar to a lot of other things, with maybe the difference being that it's got this open source thing where NAM-based captures, as well as they're gonna like it'll be easier for developers to write plugins for it. That's what I was trying to say, and create things for it. Is that? But is that what else are you guys finding interesting about it that I'm missing? Because maybe I should be looking into it more. I know you're a PAF fan, but do you like any other high output humbuckers in Les Pauls? Well, I appreciate a JB, or like the Sir SSH Plus that I'm using in my custom model is a hot pickup, and I get it. Like for what it does, it's a cool thing. But it does do that dark thing, that dark high gain thing that's not right for everything. The super distortion, I think, is a thing. I mean, I'd always loved John Sykes' sound, and he was kind of like Gibson's version of a super distortion. It was the Dirty Fingers, right? Like the ceramic magnet kind of loud ass pickup. He had a great sound. So, that all cool stuff. The Duncan Custom, similar, right? I mean, it's same spec. If you look at it, it doesn't have the hex coils, but it's got 13 points, high 13s, ceramic magnet. I like the sound of those pickups when I've listened to them, and you can hear me play them in the EVH pickup video. Super distortion and custom, and maybe not the Sir, but yeah. What's my opinion of the MXR EVH Phase 90? I like the EVH Phase 90. I like the EVH flanger too. I think they did a great job on them. It's a great way to go with the one I use is the 95, the little guy, just because it's little and it sounds great to me. So I use it now. But I've had an EVH for years that I used in a rig, and I thought it was really good. The 74 custom shop one was really good too. There's something about the block logo sort of one, the basic MXR that they had forever, had a little more defined kind of sweep to it and a little less goo. Whereas an old one, because I have an old one, it's a little more like psychedelic sounding and a little less of a defined sweep. So that was the difference. The modern almost sounded more dramatic, and the older ones would sound a little gooier and a little more like transparent, to the tone. The EVH, I've never done it. I'm sure they exist on YouTube, but a direct AB shootout with an EVH with the script switch in and an actual script one, that would be interesting. I don't have my EVH anymore. That's one pedal I don't have, but I have a few Phase 90s. I could do a custom shop 74 versus the Phase 95 versus a block logo or something shootout, I guess, something like that, because I do have those. Yeah. In your studio, do you maintain all your guitars, or do you have tech help? I do it around here, but I get behind as well. Yeah, you're saying you get behind sometimes. I sometimes will go, very rarely, but occasionally I'll go to a fellow named Eric that's out at a store in Montrose. I'm going to forget the name of it, but Grayson's Toontown. There it is. The neural pathway fired. Eric's worked on guitar stuff for me for years on and off. So if I need something done locally, because he's kind of between here and where I live, not really, but sort of. I've taken him some things like a nut to be worked on. You know, he's done a fret for me on one guitar. He's done a headstock repair on a Les Paul, stuff like that. What else? Losing my train of thought. But yeah, often I'll take guitars to John Sir if I need something done. Like there's a high fret, there's something that's like that I can't handle setup wise, and he'll fix it for me in like 10 minutes. You know, because I got to go out there a lot of times to work on things. So, you know, I'm lucky enough to have that luxury, where he'll help me with things. Yeah. You might have seen this week I put up a story where I took a video of him, and he pretended like he made a mistake on a neck while he was working on it. That was my neck, actually. But he's a funny guy. He's wonderful. Okay. What else? Let's see. It's about 2:05. I'm going to split pretty soon. I've been going about an hour and 45. I'll hang another 10 or so and then I'll split. Do you play bass? I do. Yeah. I play bass on a lot of my tracks. I have a couple basses. I got a Fender 5-string here, and I've got a Spectre 4-string. Sorry, not Spectre, Warwick, but same thing. Same thing, basically. Yeah. I think I'm pretty far back in the chat here. There's super chats and stuff. I got to grab these. What's the best load box for the money? For the money, I think the Sir is the, you know, if you want to spend like not a butt ton of money and you want a good, like really, really good, accurate reactive load, the Sir is excellent. The reactive load IR. But this gets into what do you need it to do? Because of course I've got a load box now with Dave Friedman. That's the IR load that's coming out. It's not out yet, but it'll be, you know, we had always intended on fall, so it's coming then, I think. And it's killer. I've been using it on the road. Here it is. Here's a few different ones. Take a picture and show you. There's the IR load sitting over there that I've been using, you know, the black box. Been using it here in the studio. So it's, of course, designed to be a great load box, and then a reamp. So it's got a stereo power amp in it, so you can reamp and do stereo effects and stuff. Stereo effect loop with IRs. So you can take a XLR out and go to the PA and your monitors and stuff like that. And machine learning power amp is the big deal in it, where it's got a power amp that really responds like a guitar power amp, tube power amp. It's not, you know, but we're using technology to get us there. And it's fantastic. Yeah. But it's going to be a lot more money. It's more like around the $14.99 range because of all the stuff that it does. So if you're looking for something that's just a great load box to bring you down to line level, and then you maybe want for simple recording and stuff at home, no fuss, no muss. I love the reactive load, you know, still recommend that. If you need a reamp, go through a cabinet. Maybe you also need IRs to the PA. You want to have some IR options. You want the best power amp in the business. We've got that. 2 Notes makes a good box too. You know, the Reload 2 I think is excellent for what it is, you know. Yeah. Have you had an opportunity to play through Line 6 Stadium? A little bit. I still use the HX floor with your Sir HH Sig and love it. Yeah, I used it at Line 6 and went out there and did a video. It probably exists somewhere on their website where I did a few kind of mid to high gain amp sounds and showed off some of the models, like a 5150 and I think probably a Plexi of some sort and maybe like a Bogner or something like that. And they asked me to come out and do a few clips, short ones, like 15 seconds of playing with each amp sound. And I did that. But that's the extent of it. So that's not really very much. So I'm supposed to get one here and actually make a video. Yeah. Which, you know, I think, I mean, you know, they want me to do that. Not to toot my own horn, but I think the original. Let's see here. I do want to see. If I go to my video for the, let's see, Line 6 Helix. The original video I did for the Line 6 Helix is one of my biggest videos. It's got 875,000 views. So that was my original demo. And then I've done other ones like using the Helix rack with an amp, using the PT15R IR with a Helix FX. I've made some other ones like that. And the Pod Go has 130K views. Just a bunch of different, but the big one being the Line 6 Helix demo by Pete Thorn. That video is one of my biggest videos on YouTube. So why not make one of the Stadium after all that successful videoing? That's kind of my thinking on it, is that it's a natural fit. I should do it since I go way back with that product. So have you had much musical success in Japan as a solo artist? Well, it's a little hard to sort of separate my solo career in Japan from what I've done over there with Tyoshi Nagabuchi since 2014, because Tyoshi is like a massive artist in Japan. So it's a little like playing guitar with, I don't know how to describe it. It'd be like if I played guitar here with Bruce Springsteen or something, and I had done for 10 years. People would see you and go, "You're the guy that plays with Springsteen." Oh, and you've got a couple solo records, like like the Nils Lofgren, sort of level of, like, you know what I mean? Like, if you've played with a big artist for a long time, but you've also known for a solo thing, how do you separate it? How people know your brand? I hate to use that word or whatever. You know what I mean? But that's the vibe. So that's in Japan. Like there's no reference, because like Choshi doesn't have that notoriety or success outside of Japan. So it's like, but in Japan, he's absolutely, he's the kind of can't go out in the street sort of guy. Can't, has to, if you're going out to dinner with somebody like that, you're generally booking off a private room in a restaurant somewhere that is, that kind of thing. And there's no just going to hang out and go to the movies or anything with these kinds of people. So it's that level. So because of that, when I land in Japan, I've got a different thing going on. I have a different career outside of anywhere else almost because of that. So you'll often be, if I'm walking down the street or something, it's just as likely that somebody's going to come up to me and go, "Oh my God, you play with, Chochi," or they might be like, "Hey, you're Pete from YouTube," and both those things happen. So, yeah. It's kind of funny because it's like, I remember being in Japan with Shane Gallus from, he plays with that Canadian cover band, Took, which is two of the guys that play with Slash, right? And they do all Canadian rock, like, better than anybody. Todd Kearns is the singer. You guys know these guys. And Shane is the drummer, right? And you've seen him if you know Took. If you haven't, maybe some of you don't. But he's the blonde guy, looks like a surfer, and he's an amazing drummer. If you don't follow him, you should follow him on YouTube and on Instagram and stuff. But anyway, he's played with the Bees, which is probably the biggest rock band in Japan for 20, must be 25 years now. He's done it, something like that, on and off, because they had a period where it was actually kind of weird, where like they tried another band, like be like playing with Paul McCartney forever, and then he does an album cycle where he just gets all different guys. That's kind of what happened. But now he's back and doing it again. And the Bees is Taka Matsumoto, and I'm forgetting the other fellow's name, which is the kind of the main lead singer guy. But anyway, it's the two of them really, and then they've got a band, and so anyway, Shane's been in the Bees forever, and he came to the first time I ever met him, because we kind of had just been internet friends and stuff like that and talked, but he's from Alberta as well. I'm from Alberta. I grew up there. He actually is from a town called Innisvale, where my mother was born. Tiny town just north of Calgary a little bit. So it's kind of random, but he's from the same town where my mom's from. And so we, had to exchange messages and stuff over the years, but we never actually hung. So this is going back to 2018, I think, or something, 2017, 2018. I had a birthday there, and he came to my birthday, which I had at a Tex-Mex place. And so we're all hanging out there and eating and stuff like that. And he, we're making fast friends and stuff like that. And we walk out in the street, and it's like, so I've never hung out with this guy in Japan, and he's, like I say, he's like blonde, very, looks like an American surfer guy. We walk out in the street, and we get out of the restaurant and get down on the street, and there's a van driving by on the street, and the van screeches to a halt, and the windows roll down, and it's full of girls, and they go like, "Oh my God, Shane!" Shane! And they're like freaking out, and I'm like, "Oh, so it's like this for you here, of course, okay." It was really funny. It was like, he's like a superstar because he's this, good-looking blonde surfer guy from, yeah, like working in Japan for the last 20 years. He's very, unique looking for being there, and people just, so it's like that. He's like a rock star there. So I'm not like that level, quite like him, but it is a different thing. Like my life in Japan becomes a different, it's kind of cool. It's like it's like a weird separate career a little bit that I have there. Yeah. It's different. Yeah. Make Japanese friends with students locally who also want to learn English. You can practice daily. That's the best. Yeah, that's a good way to learn. The problem with that is they always want to speak English then, and you always want to speak Japanese. So, okay. I'm going to split here in a sec, but what else? Oh, for learning languages, I recommend watching anything animated. When I was watching German, cartoons were very helpful because the dialogue is spoken very clear and deliberately. That's cool. Good idea. Maybe I should do that. A little more like anime stuff and kind of get into it from that. Okay, moving down through the chat. Make sure I didn't miss any super chats here. I use low output pickup, says Todd. I'm not into high gain, but then I'm a bluesy jazzy funky player. No high gain needed. Yeah, it's just that high gain doesn't always mean, or high output pickup doesn't always mean best for high gain. It's kind of interesting. It's like, I love my super distortion. I've grown to love them too. I do want to put one in a guitar that's like maybe I've got an Explorer here and I've never loved the pickups in it. Maybe the super distortion should go in that guitar. Or I've got Les Pauls, that I'm not using, that I could put a distortion pickup in. Might be cool. I saw pictures of Eddie using that, you ever see kind of 80 or 81 where he's playing the Les Paul Custom? Maybe that was kind of his replacement for the Destroyer after he cut the piece out of it. But he used to play Les Paul Custom a little bit on tour, that white one that he used for a while. And I think it looks like in the bridge is a cream distortion. Maybe it's one of those ones where he would replace the magnet with an A2 magnet. But yeah. Anyways, I should put it in something. I always thought ceramic magnet, like on my Explorer, sounded brash. Yeah, I always thought they were cold, was the way I described it. When I would hear a ceramic magnet pickup, whereas I liked the tone. I always just kind of went like, I made a decision sometime probably like 82, 83, 84, 85, where I was like, yeah, I think I like Alnico magnet pickups when I was a kid. And I was like, I like 59s and JBs, and I like that thing, that Alnico magnet thing. I tried a distortion and be like, yeah, cold was what I remember. But now I kind of get it, what it does into a certain amp for a certain thing, a certain era of rock. Super distortion, kind of cool, or Duncan Custom, kind of cool. Now I don't think of it as cold. I just think of it as less upper mid peaky thing and a little more broad overall fat sound, big distortion wall of sound thing. That's the way I think about it. Yeah. Love talking to Ed with you. Thanks. I mean, I probably spent way too much time thinking about this stuff than I should have, but who knows? Ace's tone on Alive is it's funny because Ace used super distortion, right? Yeah, you're saying I love Ace's Alive tone would have been super distortion. Yeah, he was well known for using them as well, and Ace used a Destroyer, so he might have done super distortion with Destroyer for a time, I think, because he was one of the other guys with one of those Ibanez. So kind of interesting. But hand wound super distortions he was getting from Larry at the time. He and Paul both had those. Yeah, when you think about it, they were running, into probably a master volume, maybe a super lead, but kind of just wanted more grind into the front of an amp to get rock distortion in the 70s. So I should go listen to his tone actually. A little more like Put On Alive again. What other things do you play? I just play guitar and bass, really. That's it. Yeah. Yep. Yeah. Been fortunate to play in some big sessions lately. Found it can be hard to really connect with people in the room when you don't casually drink or smoke. That's a really good question. How have you navigated that? Probably through casual drinking and smoking. No, just kidding. But it could go the other way. There's a healthy segment of musicians based out of LA that are sober. So that's a whole thing. And yeah, I know it can be challenging. Like if people party or don't party, or if they're religious, that could be another. That's a Nashville thing. Like what church do you go to? And it's like it's kind of navigating the human aspect. It's a little bit of work, a little bit of human. Feeling comfortable around people that are into the same things as you, and then obviously the social lubricant thing, drinking, smoking, kind of bleeds into just sort of general anxiety and stuff, where being comfortable in your own skin if you don't do the same things that people do. I don't have a great answer, but I would say try. Okay, this is my answer. I've got my good friend John Button, who's vegan, and I've always said, really great on the road, because you could be in Texas and he'll never make you feel like, oh, how are we going to find a place where John can eat? Because it's all steakhouses and like whatever. It's not a ton of vegan food. We're not in LA anymore. You never even feel that with him. Like he's very good about. He's figured out like, hey, I want to be in different social. I'm not going to like separate myself or make people feel uncomfortable because I do things a little different way. I'm going to integrate myself into their circle and I'm going to be cool, which I know it's almost, when we're talking about drinking and smoking, maybe if that's been a decision, one of the things is to maybe not put yourself in situations where that is the activity. So that can become a factor, which is probably why you end up with, certain bands on the road that are all sober people, where it's just kind of not. It's a tough one, but I would just say if there's a way that you can, like, if you just choose to, if you don't have a big issue with that, if you're like, yeah, no, it's not that, I don't like to drink. So, but go out and maybe develop a taste for, I mean, certainly more than ever these days, there's more non-alcoholic stuff going on because younger people aren't drinking as much. And I mean, the alcohol companies are hip to it and they've all started making, cocktail. I mean, I see it everywhere now. I go in the grocery store, there's a whole section of like non-alcoholic cocktails, or NA beers. Some of the NA beers are really good now. I actually quite like the Corona. It's like, because I like a Corona every now and then for just a hot day or whatever, and you want a light beer. I like other kinds of beers too, IPAs and all kinds of stuff. But I really like an NA Corona, which, by the way, I've also been cheating on my no gluten. I'm not kind of no gluten guy, but I'll drink a beer every now and then. And a NA Corona is a great. You kind of forget it's so tastes like a regular Corona. The NA Guinness is pretty good too if you're into that type of thing, stouts and stuff. But anyway, just if you're like, yeah, I can do that, well, grab one of those and then just hang out and rap with people. People won't even think that you're not, you just go get yourself a NA beer, and it looks like you're sitting there drinking a beer, and then it becomes a non-issue probably, right? I don't know. Trying to insert yourself into those situations and not make it a thing is maybe the way to navigate it. But I don't know if that's just a layman's kind of advice. It might be, depending on your specific situation, that could be bad advice. Yeah. Have you heard of the Zach Schultz gang? Thanks for the super chat there. Who's your rock? Fantastic young guitarist who only uses a Roland Blues Cube Strat and Troop Screen. That's cool. I haven't. Would love to hear it. Blues Cube is good amp. I mean, I remember the 90s ones were it's like solid sounding, really, really, really good sounding. There were some good solid state amps back then. The Blues Cube, even the PV Trans Tube Bandit. I thought it sounded pretty good. Maybe not quite as good as the Blues Cube. Those Blues Cubes, when they came out, I was like, yeah, that's a pretty good sound. At least for, low key practice or even club gigs or something. Not bad at all. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. What do you think about Orange Pedal Baby versus Seymour Duncan Power Stage versus Quilter? I like the Orange. Found it quite bright. It's got treble and bass controls. I would have to dial the treble back, I found on it. Power Stage used a lot. It's a good solid piece of gear. It's Class D. So it's got this. There it is, Class D. There's a bit of a hardness to that sound. Not bad. They're loud. They make power. It's not my favorite. The Quilter, haven't tried. The two that I did use actually on Five for Fighting gigs were the Pedal Baby. I could backline those out of Nashville. There's a place, so it's like if I'll fly out and do a one-off and I want to bring a power amp, I backline the Pedal Baby. Pretty good. Power Stage, okay. The new little Wampler, killing. That's the one. So here it is right here. The size of it. I'm the guinea pig. Nobody has one of these, but I got one here because I'm essentially the beta tester. But yeah, that's what I used for the Five for Fighting tour. And I mean, with the volume on master about there, just a hair past noon, and that was plenty of volume powering a stereo Marshall cabinet on stage for me. Not a metal band, but I had plenty of volume left on tap. This thing's a game changer, I think. Just a killer sounding little unit that it just sounds, it's got good tone, guitar tone. It's not just pure volume or power with the slightly hard sound. It's like oh yeah, it feels like an amp. So just purchased Marshall 1959 hand wide modified. Such a good amp. Ended up buying the matching A hand wired and B hand wired for a full stack. Whoa, you're rocking. Put it all through a Fryette PS100. Holy moly. Rocking. Killer. I think those are really cool. It's basically a plexi with a master volume and then a SAT circuit. So it's sort of a Jose, but without the Jose gain boost. If it was me, I might get somebody to add the Jose gain boost in the front end. Just go all the way with it. Then you've got a Jose, basically. Right? You got a 3-in-1 Jose mod if you do the half a tube gain boost into the front end. So it's just a thought. But if you're happy with it as is, shut up, Pete Thorn. Don't listen to what he says. Use it as is. If you're happy, then you're happy. Yep, that's awesome. Congrats on your new amp. Anagram also has 6-core processor than 4 and is cheaper than the Quad Cortex. Oh, interesting. That's interesting. I should maybe page back and see, because you obviously were saying other things about the anagram that I should have read through. See if I missed it, if I can see it easily here. Let's see. Do I think that Super Distortion was designed to push a plexi while cutting some of the bright cap highs? I think a Super Distortion was simply designed to push louder. Yeah. And also, I mean, I asked Larry a couple questions about it specifically And one of the things I asked him was it designed to be more hum canceling? Because it's one of the quietest pickups I've ever tried. And one of the things about a super distortion is that I've come to realize is both coils are the same. So in other words, you've got the hex screws. You don't have a slug coil and a screw coil, which actually the two coils being slightly different in like a PAF style pickup or something actually creates a little more hum because they're not exactly the same. So I said, is a super distortion, I asked him specifically, is a super distortion so damn quiet because the coils are the same? Like, in other words, same type of pole pieces and everything? He goes, yes, all that. That was the answer I got. So I think it was designed to be just a more powerful humbucker in kind of a, like, just let's wind it up hotter with different wire and these different pole pieces and use a different kind of magnet in it and see how that goes. And there it is. So a lot of stuff was happy accidents back then. I mean, I don't know how much thought was put into, like, once they did that spec, did they try different ones? Did they wind it even hotter? Did they wind it less? Like, I don't know. It's interesting. How did they arrive at how many, you know what I mean? Like the 13.8 or whatever, in ceramic magnet, all that, like, how did they arrive at that? It's interesting, but yeah. It seems people never chased the Randy Rhoads tone. I think Randy was still developing his guitar tone before he died. He was really young, right? Live album, you can hear it change from what it was on the albums. Yeah, the albums must have been highly influenced by producers and engineers and things. And I think he was probably just like, the one thing about Randy's sound is that it was the combination of the distortion plus and the EQ where he got a pretty cool sound out of both of those things. The distortion plus on its own doesn't sound good to me in front of like a Marshall Plexi or something. But when you add the EQ, it's like, oh, there it is. It sounds actually way cooler. And the EQ exact settings is something I learned from a Guitar World article where they profiled Randy's sound, and they must have found old photos or something, and they showed the settings on the EQ, and I tried it with the super distortion and went, oh, that actually sounds good. Distortion plus on its own, not so much. I could get a way better sound that I liked more just using a super overdrive in front of a Plexi than I could with the distortion plus. But the distortion plus with the EQ, cool too, like really good sound. So he had developed that, is my point, that he knew he needed more distortion for, but he must have tried the pedal on its own and gone like, that doesn't sound very good. What if I EQ it? And then he arrived at something, and it was a cool combo of things, which is there. There was something about that era where it was like not so many options. They just weren't out there. They weren't available. So people used what they had. They put the simple stuff together, and they came up with some pretty cool stuff. Like, that's a big part of all those 70s, 80s guitar sounds. I was thinking about Ty Tabor on the way to work, like the Strat Elite weird guitar, with the mid boost in it, and then the lab amp, graphic EQ, cheap effects, the MIDI Verb 2 and stuff, and ended up with this sound that was like totally unique and cool. That was, different than anyone else. So, yeah. Okay. I should split. Suzanne says, great talk today, learning a lot. My Ibanez Les Paul sounds funky. I need help. Well, put some good pickups in it and carry on, Good pickups, good electronics, should sort it out. Phil Collin from Def Leppard used super distortion. That makes sense, from just, I think a lot of people used them, a lot of folks. Tom Schultz too, didn't he use super distortions and then maybe super twos later? The one that looked like a P90 size. Yeah. If people give you shit about not smoking or drinking, they're probably not the people you want to hang with in the first place. Yeah, I mean, it's the intricacies, 100%, and then the intricacies of the road and employment too, right? Like if you get in on a session, it's nuanced because it's like you want to fit in with people. It's just like it's like high school, man. Nothing ever changes, It's like you want to fit in with people and be a part of things and stuff. And so you're trying to be cool, but if you're like, I don't smoke and I don't drink, and then they do, and you're worried about how that makes you look, maybe they don't even give you shit, but you feel something, even if it's not real, all that. It's like all these things come into play when you're trying to just fit in a workplace and like get ahead in your career. And then it's all layered, isn't it? Like, so psychology of it all is interesting. You just have to be careful, I think. And be respectful of other people. And I will say the older I get, the easier all that gets. The less anxiety and, fitting in becomes easier because you just don't give a shit as much as you did when you were, it's like people are I am what I am, like here it is, which isn't to say, I don't want to grow or become better, or it's just to say like I think you get more comfortable in your own skin as you get older, I was thinking about Joni Mitchell the other day, who, obviously she's a legend and an icon, and she was on the Juno Awards this past year, and they did a version of, Pay Paradise, put up a parking lot. That's, her epic tune, and to kind of honor her. And it was Sarah McLachlan singing. They did it really fast. It was a very fast version of the song, super up tempo. And then they had her up there. Now she's been through, I think, either a stroke or some sort of aneurysm or something, and has recovered quite well. But she's still, and she's older and everything. She's up there on stage, and so she was like, they kind of were throwing her verses and lines to sing, and she was like having trouble keeping up, but it was so funny how she dealt with it. She just went like, they got to the end of the song where she sang the last line, and it was like kind of rushed for her, and she just did her best. And then she kind of went, and she made this face, and it's on this award show where it's like, you would think like they're, you know what I mean? It was perfect. It was just like, I don't know, man, whatever. Like life is, here I am, and I'm Joni Mitchell. And it was really beautiful. Like the whole, it was like, there it is, But it was great, watch it if you want to see what I'm talking about. But I just loved her reaction through the whole thing. She was just like trying to rush and do the best she could, and at the end she was like which is, if you're an older person and you get to that point and you've managed to live that long and everything, I think that's the best you can. It's like, jeez, what, did the best I could. There it was. Anyway, okay, everybody, have a great week. And from France, the older I get, the less I care about what people think. I don't drink, don't smoke, don't do drugs. I'm vegetarian. Choice 35 years ago. Been criticized. But yeah, but like you're choosing to live your own, I think there's a lot of, and in France where people drink and, socially and everything, it's probably difficult in its own way. But for you, it makes you feel good. And, while they're sleeping in because they're a little hungover or whatever, you're up in the morning, probably at 6:30 in the morning going, look at this beautiful sunrise, clear as a bell. Right. And there's a whole beauty to that too. So it's like, whatever makes you happy. Right. Anyways. Okay. Everybody have a great week. I'll try and be more on time next week. Sorry I was so late. And should be some form of videos and stuff coming this week. At least this Roswell Mike video, and going to get into some other things here. So I've got a whole bunch to do. So. All right, everybody. Thanks so much.